Welcome to Think, Engage, Thrive, our show on entrepreneurship. And we're here to showcase some of the most inspiring and innovative entrepreneurs. If you've ever thought about starting your own business, think hard, and you should watch and listen to what we're going to tell you, because we tell you the good, the bad, the funny stories of startups. And tonight, we're thrilled to have with us Blaire Brown, founder and CEO of Visionary Advantages Brand Lab, helping businesses elevate their brand. Blaire does many things, which we'll get into. She doesn't just have that. She teaches, she helps entrepreneurs. She's got a training course. So really a well-rounded entrepreneur. And I think you're going to love listening to some of her stories. So Blaire, welcome.
Hi. Thank you so much for having me today. I'm so excited.
Oh, yeah, it's our pleasure. Believe me. So Blaire, you're doing a lot of different things. One of the things that we talked about was sort of your background, how you got started, some of the things you've done, your background in fashion, your background in Amazon, your background in entrepreneurship. So why don't you sort of take us through that whole piece of how you got started, where you started, why you started. It's not exactly a course that anybody wants to take in life. Being an entrepreneur, it's a more difficult one. Sometimes you might be better off just going to work for somebody else, but you chose the path. How come? Why? Take us through it.
I love that, because you chose this path, except that should be how you said it, because honestly, anybody who is an entrepreneur listening gets it. But no, totally. I don't think that I could have shaken entrepreneurship if I tried. It's just always been who I am. So back in the day, and we're reaching into the archives, I started my first official business back whenever I was 16. In school, kids were carrying around Coach bags, Louis Vuitton, and I was 16. I can't afford that. My parents weren't about to go buy that for me. They're smart. So I was like, well, what can I do? I'm going to make my own handbags, because I've always been sewing since I was really little. And so I thought, I'll make my own. Started sewing designing them, sewing them at my little Joann's fabric store. And it got a lot of attention from strangers at Starbucks, teachers, friends. Where did you get your bag? It's really cute. I want one of those. Where did you get it? And so I went to my parents one day and I said, hey, I think this could really be something. Can I borrow $300 and go to Joann's and buy fabrics materials and start a purse business? My parents looked at each other and they looked at me and they're like, yeah. So I'm really fortunate. My whole family, all of us, we're all entrepreneurs, very different businesses, but we support each other's crazy as far as that goes. So it wasn't like a weird ask for them. So that was very fortunate.
Well, I think that's pretty good that they're so supportive and ready to help you launch.
Oh yeah, they're totally the best. So I really lucked out.
Yeah, that is. It's a lot of parents I don't know would be, tell you to go and get a summer job. You're better off getting a summer job.
Yeah, exactly. But it really did well. I created my own website. This is before Etsy existed. I started selling there. I started selling them in person. I would go to shows. And I ended up running that business for about 8 years, which is surprising, because you'd think, at 16, it would fizzle out really fast. But I would stay up late hours on school nights and just be cranking out handbags, sewing them left and right. And I found my passion for the fashion industry that way. And my vision was I was going to go into the fashion industry and I was going to have my own brick and mortar shop forever and selling handbags. Because, if you want to tell God a joke, tell him your plans.
Yeah.
And so I thought that's what my end all was going to be. And so I pursued it. I went to school. I started at Virginia Tech in their fashion program. And then I transferred over to FIT, the Fashion Institute of Technology in New York. And I went to the business school there. Loved it. Was selling handbags out of my dorm room. I sold at the school store. When I was at Virginia Tech, I had my own little monopoly going on where random stranger, like students, would knock on my door and ask me to sew and fix their dresses for their sorority events and other things because I was the only person on campus with a sewing machine. So yeah, it just evolved. I called my mom. I was like, I think I have a monopoly going on.
Yeah.
Like, I think that's what's happening. So I ran that. And then finally, after college, I realized I couldn't scale the business like I wanted to because I didn't understand. At that point in my life, I didn't know how to do it or didn't have the means to do manufacturing. So I put it on the back burner and everybody, you know, is all gung ho about going into corporate. And I was like, well, that's what I should want to do. So I went into corporate. And so I'm really grateful for the time that I went through, and I worked in marketing, branding, PR, and fashion journalism. Loved it, but also didn't. Every time I'd sit at my desk, I'd have a picture perfect job. And I'd be like, you know, I feel like I'm taking 100 steps backwards. And over time, that little voice in my head, like you should be doing something else, kept tapping and talking to me. And I was like, I don't know why I shouldn't feel that way. I almost felt, you know, like I should be. How ungrateful could I be to have this job? Like I felt like something was wrong with me.
Yeah.
That was kind of a challenging conundrum I was in because I thought, well, I could apply for other jobs, but there's no reason for me not to like this job, you know? Couldn't figure it out. So my mom called me one day. She said, hey, I've been looking through these YouTube videos and I saw this Amazon FBA opportunity and I think maybe you should try it out. And I was like, Mom, you're watching YouTube videos? You're so hip. So I looked into it and I thought this looks really cool. A part of my background also is in product development. And so I already know, I know you talk about Amazon, but for anybody who doesn't know, Amazon FBA is fulfillment by Amazon. That's the acronym. And basically it gives people like us the opportunity to work with manufacturers anywhere, develop the product, figure out all the UPC, packing, shipping, you name it, freight. And then once it's in the States or wherever you're living, you send it to the Amazon warehouse. That way I don't have hundreds of product in my apartment.
Yeah.
So it's pretty great. They pack, pick, and ship afterwards. So anyway, I called her back and I was like, you know what? That looks pretty great. We should partner up and try this out. And so we did. We decided to sell unicorn party supplies because we felt like, you know what? That's always in style with kids. And so we ended up launching the product. We ran that for a couple years. We sold out. And then after that, we were kind of like, you know, it was a lot of work and not a lot of return for what we were doing. And I'm sure that there's a science behind it, but we couldn't figure it out in that time frame. And I did that while I was juggling my corporate job. So you can imagine that was a lot. And I was bartending on the side. I mean, you know, when you live in New York City for that long, you got to figure out how to hustle and like make it. It's like no joke. So, you know, but the biggest takeaway for me at that time was that, you know what? I had so much joy in my soul to sell the first unicorn party supply and the next one and the next one. And I thought, you know what? I'm not passionate about these party supplies at all. That is not what I'm passionate about. I'm passionate about being an entrepreneur and really building something. And it's, you know, it's exciting. And so that realization was really huge for me. And so in 2019, that's when I decided to just take the leap, take a risk on myself and just go for it. I was like, I'm not 100% sure what that's going to look like, but this is my thought. And so, you know, after several twists and turns along the way, now I have visionary advantages, and we call ourselves a brand lab because that's what branding is all about, right? You're always testing things out and figuring out marketing strategies, and it's really fun. We're like scientists, but the fun ones. And so we do that, and we help all kinds of businesses with their marketing strategies. So everything from logo design and website building to building trade show booths. So it's fun.
Yeah, I'll tell you, just to go back to Amazon for a bit, you know, I started on Amazon back in 2006, and it was a completely different ball game then. But what I learned early on was selling on Amazon and building a brand on Amazon are two entirely different things. I don't sell on Amazon. We try and build brands, and we only work, like with our agency, we only work with brands that are selling on Amazon. We don't want to get involved with resellers. That economic model never made sense to me. because I'm selling something that anybody else could sell. So I'm in a price competition game, and the pennies, that you're fighting for in profit can go away with just one mistake. So,
Yeah, and plus, once you're a product on Amazon, who's your competitor?
yeah,
Amazon.
yeah,
So for
yeah,
us, that was a very quick realization, because then all of a sudden other products popped up that were similar. We're like, oh my gosh, how do we make a profit from this? And then it's just like back and forth, back and forth. And then that gets to be a lot. And then it's like, okay, now I got to go back to manufacturing again. Is
yeah.
it worth it? I don't know.
No, I think that you're in a much better. I think you made a much better realization. Because,
Yeah.
yeah.
I'm glad that it was shorter term for us, but we had fun while we did it. We learned a lot. And somehow I convinced my friends in New York we were on a rooftop one day, having drinks and stuff. I convinced them all to wear unicorn party supplies on this rooftop so I can get some good sunset photos.
Oh, yeah.
I sent them the link. I said, you're on Amazon right now. Guess what? Wearing these silly supplies. Good friends.
That's fun. Yeah, I grew up in New York, and the rooftops, we call them Tar Beach.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it.
That's what it was. In the summer, you'd go up there and sunbathe, but
Woo, hot.
hot, very hot. Yeah, that's excellent. That's a great story. So now you have visionary advantages. You're working on branding. Tell us what that's sort of like. What inspired you into that world, and obviously agencies are not easy because you've constantly got to have a good pipeline to keep your accounts flowing. So especially when you're doing, I think, well, I'll equate it to when we build websites. It's sort of you're getting paid once, right? You're building a website to get paid. Maybe you get the agreement to update it every month, but still it's not the same as doing monthly retainers for SEO or Amazon or whatever. So how did you get that going? What's sort of your strategy there to grow, and what are you really trying to attain with it?
Yeah. So, you and I were laughing off camera earlier. We're like, agencies, does anybody like, they're usually, they just happen one day. Right. So whenever I took that leap into entrepreneurship, I initially thought I was going to be a freelance writer. I actually took a writing course in Paris because I saw that there was an American University of Paris and they had a 3-week program. So I already had my degree at that point. So I don't really need another certificate or anything, but I just wanted to go brush up and then pursue.
I just wanted to go to Paris and learn how to write.
And also that because like twist my arm, darn, my life is hard. Yeah, no, it was awesome. So I did that, came back, and I was bartending and freelance writing in between, and that was doing fine. But more so, I was getting contacted by some friends just because they know my background and they know I'm going to cheer them on and just be like, yeah, go for it. Like any idea, like you have to work hard, but do it,
Yeah.
And a lot of people would come to me for advice on how to start businesses. And it was simple things like, how do you set up an LLC? How do you work on branding, marketing, all these things? And so I was giving them all this advice about it and helping them out. And like, that was really fulfilling for me to see them go after their dreams. Cause that was my life. Has always been my life, but to understand going from corporate to starting your own thing is a big deal. And especially just to take the initial steps. So I was happy to help them. And then one of my friends one day DM'd me on Instagram and said, hey, the founder of this company I'm working with really needs marketing help. Are you still doing marketing? Because my last corporate job was in fashion footwear and marketing in particular. And so I was like, yeah, like I'd be open to talking to him. So I did. And I didn't realize there's brilliant business owners everywhere, but it does not mean that everybody's good at marketing.
That's true.
So that's something
true.
I actually didn't realize that because it's so, it just comes naturally to me. That's just how I've always been doing it. I've always been marketing every business that I've had. And so I was like, oh my gosh, this isn't second nature to people. that's new. So I picked up
Yeah.
that consulting job, and then I really was in the trenches understanding like where these people's challenges coming from, because it's a small business that's been around for a long time and they're successful that people would never know that they're small.
Yeah.
Like they're a national brand. And but they really didn't have the foundation set. And so I thought about it, and I was like, over time it's developed and grown out more. Visionary Advantages has, but I wanted to find a solution for business owners where's a one-stop shop essentially for marketing,
Yeah.
that you don't have to hire 5 different agencies for specific areas. Like, for example, there's oftentimes just a website design agency or an SEO agency or PR or branding, and those are their niches, which is great. But if you are that small to medium-sized business and you can't afford to have, thousands of dollars per agency per month, it's just not realistic. How do you manage all that with it and build up your own brand cohesively?
Yeah.
So what we've done is we create like a marketing business in a box kind of bundle where we provide all of those things. And it's not just me over here. Like, I have a team of specialists that are specialized in each area. So that way, when I work with business owners, they can come to me and we're like, yeah, let's create an amazing logo for you. We'll design your website. What are your next steps? Then let's knock out that SEO. We'll write blog posts for you. In fact, because we know you all hate it, we'll do your social media.
Yeah.
So basically that's typically how we work with people. And then on an ongoing basis, because like you said, websites, they come and go. Like, those are kind of one-off projects.
Yeah.
I'm not going to be redesigning their logo every week, right? Like, they're
Right.
done after once. But ongoing help that we provide is the SEO services, blog writing that goes with it, social media. And then we really become an extension of the company, because they can come to us for really any marketing project. Like, what we just designed, I told you earlier, a trade show booth.
Yeah.
We helped with that. We do consulting. We developed actually a 3D rendering product line, which I didn't think that we'd be doing that for this company, but we did. So there's always different creative opportunities to help brands out. And that's where we thrive. We're able to take those, the branding that we've solidified, made really awesome. And then we can evolve it into these specialized projects, because nobody is cookie cutter. So we eliminate having to hire 1 billion people.
Yeah.
It's us. And the strategy is under one roof. So my team works together on the strategy. So that way you don't have any like weird, disconnects along the line.
Yeah. I think it's always amazing that there's brilliant guys out there, brilliant men and women that are, when I say guys, I always mean men and women. I just use guys as a thing, but
yeah,
there are brilliant people out there that are developing products. They develop businesses, they develop apps, they develop all kinds of things, and they forget about branding. And they think that people are going to just automatically get it like they do. And they don't. And we worked for a period of time. We had an affiliation with a prototyping company downtown in Baltimore, and you would go there with your idea and they would build it, whether they use 3D printing or whatever. They would build your idea as a prototype. And I can't tell you how many people would say, okay, well, we need to market. You say, well, okay, what's the brand about? Explain the brand to me, explain what we're doing, and then we can lay out a marketing plan for you. But they think you just build it, you put up a website, and people will come.
That is not. If only.
I know.
But that's such a common misconception, is people do think we have the website, we're ready to rock. And it's like, well, yeah, that would be awesome, but you got to drive traffic to it. And what people don't know is that Google doesn't automatically pick up your website, right?
No.
There's a lot of back-end things that you have to do for them to acknowledge and recognize your site in order for it to even populate on page 1. So those strategies really count towards capturing new leads. And you don't want to have to network every single day of your life and go to all these in-person things. If you can have some, I mean, those are great things, but like have some traffic organically come to your site through SEO strategies.
Yeah, no question. But even just the concept of branding, the concept of logo design, the concept of making sure your logo reflects what your brand is, make sure that you know what your brand statement is. Because when you build a website, okay, well, what is it going to say? It has to say something about what you're doing. So when people get there, they know, okay, this is what this is about. Right?
Yeah, 100%. And is it going to convert? Is that something that they actually want? Some
Right.
people don't even do that, that extra work where it's like, let's ask them what they want. And then really crafting the message behind it. All those things add up. And that's the difference between, a business and a brand. You got to really develop that.
Absolutely. Imagery, colors, color palettes, all that.
Mm-hmm.
I love branding. We don't really get involved too much with it, only because most of the clients we have are established brands. We do a little bit when we do some startup work, but it's not really our forte. But it's definitely fun. It's fun, and it's an art.
Yeah. I mean, sometimes I'll walk by logos of random restaurants and stuff. I'll take a picture. I'm like, my dream is to make a logo using this font one day, or use this font for some brand. That's like the nerdiest thing ever. But I just you get to be so creative,
Yeah.
The opportunities are endless, and you don't know what kind of, for me, I can work across any industry really. So, you just don't know what the next kind of business is going to be that you work with. It's exciting.
Yeah. There's no question about it. But it's true. Even the smallest things that people don't think about, like the font. What kind of font are you going to use? There was a great SNL skit, when you get a chance, called Papyrus. I don't know if you ever saw it or not.
No, but I'm already intrigued.
But you should go and watch it. Papyrus. It's hysterical because it was about God, I can't remember. There was a movie that came out that used this specific font, and the guy's going nuts because you just got to watch it. It's funny, but I always think it's funny when people talk about fonts. I always think about that SNL skit. So,
I'm so watching it right after we get off this.
Yeah, you have to watch it. It's a very funny thing.
Awesome.
So, I'll tell you that whenever you start a business, any business, right, you always have obstacles. And to get started, nothing ever goes smoothly. I don't know if maybe it does for you, but it never did for me. There's always
definitely
obstacles. So
definitely not.
Can you talk about some of that? Because I think one of the things I see a lot with young entrepreneurs, and even older ones when they first get in, they think that their business plan that they just laid out is how it's going to work. They're everything that they say is going to happen, and I tell people, even with branding, when if you're a startup, I'll say, look, get your minimum viable product, get your minimum viable brand, make sure your brand message, because until you start rolling, you're not going to know if it works. You might wind up changing your colors, your fonts, your brand, your logo. I mean, look at Apple's logo when they first started, and 2 years later, what they did, et cetera. So what are some of the obstacles you faced?
You couldn't be more accurate than that, though. I mean, even myself, who works in branding, I've changed my brand quite a few times. It's just, I mean, that's what's going to happen. I tell every person I work with, if it's their first business and they haven't been like rolling for a while, I'm like, don't stress about some of these tiny things. You will change it. Accept that.
You will change it.
It's going to happen. Probably more than once, probably. So just be okay with that. Once you're okay with it, you'll weight off your shoulders, but as far as challenges for me have gone, whenever my first business, right, I didn't know how to do manufacturing. So that was a big, all right, I guess I have to put that to bed. That was sad for me. But for Amazon, I'd say that that's probably a big one, because first off, the legwork that goes into even getting that product created, holy cow, it was so much work. The amount of phone call, and I'm so grateful. My mom is amazing. I'm so happy. I couldn't have done that without partnering with her, because we were tag teaming, because she had a job. She had a job and running a business too. My parents at that time owned a speakeasy in Southern Maryland, which is pretty fun. So she's doing those and then working on Amazon with me. And then I was working the corporate job, had Amazon, and then I was bartending on the weekends because New York life. So between the two of us, we're making calls to the Amazon helpline, which I don't think they have anymore. They did at the time.
Yeah, they still do.
They do? Okay. Well,
so it's seller support, but it's very
Oh, it was so bad. Like, it was
Yeah.
so cryptic. It was like, oh my gosh, it was really challenging. So that alone was super challenging, but we honestly were like, we celebrated the second we got that thing online, like it went live and that was in the warehouse,
Yeah.
because I think that it's at least at the time, only 3% of people that try to do Amazon make their product gets on Amazon as an FBA seller at least. And so I was like, God, my mom and I are high-fiving. We're having cocktails. We're like, let's celebrate this because we got the dang thing in their warehouses. Like,
Yeah. Yeah.
finally. Um, but it was just challenging because once you get it on their website, then whenever your competitor is Amazon itself, unless you've got like some, and again, I know that there's so many successful people on this, but we couldn't crack the code. So
It's funny. There aren't as many as people think. You know,
mhm.
the Amazon, I think that there's when you look at social media, and I do because we're constantly on it. We have it on all day because we're running ads for people and all that. But we see all these ads coming through, and it's amazing. All these people that I'll set you up with an automated Amazon store. I'll set you up with this. I'll set you up with that. And it really does a disservice because it's just not that easy. It's
Mhm.
not that simple, and people try and make it simple. But the reality is that the second largest, the two largest sellers on Amazon of resellers that sell other people's products.
Like
They
arbitrage, is that the term?
like what?
Is it called arbitrage? What's the word? It starts with an
Oh,
A.
online arbitrage? Yeah,
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Is that the
that's when you go, that's mostly for little guys. That's when you
Oh, okay.
go and you go to the
You like
dollar
flip it.
store and you find Crest toothpaste for, $2 and you
Okay.
can sell it on Amazon for 4. You go and you do that, or you scour these sites for deals, buying
Oh,
closeouts and stuff. That's online arbitrage.
okay.
The 2 biggest guys out there, um, I don't want to say their names, but they're resellers, but they're tied to wholesalers. So their product is sitting next door in a warehouse. They're selling it. So they have a supply chain advantage. But the other piece is one of them, the second largest one, and there's an article about it, and I'll send it to you sideways when we're offline. But they did $20 million in sales, and they didn't make any money. They totally lost money.
Stop.
Yeah,
Oh.
and it makes total sense to me because they were resellers, right? And then I know people that have brands, and when you think about it, in FBA, you're paying 15% listing fee, you're paying 15% for FBA fee. Then on top of that, you've got your shipping costs, and you've got your shipping in, and you've got all those associated costs of labeling and things like that. So when you look at it, 30% right off the top. So you better have about 70 or 80% margin in your product in order to
Mhm,
even remotely make money. And if you
mhm.
do, you're only really going to make 4 or 5%. What I find when I look at some of the forums is, and we just had Prime Day and all these guys were showing their numbers, and I can look at it and dissect it and say that these guys don't even know they're not making money until the end of the year when they go, "Oh my God, what happened?"
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, we evaluated that pretty quick, and we were just
yeah.
like, let's just sell out of this and then call it a day. Like, we're still gonna toast being the top, the 3% that made it on, but it was a really great learning experience,
Oh, yeah.
honestly. And now whenever I see videos like that are like hyping it up and you can do this overnight, it's so easy. I'm just like,
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah.
I don't know what code you've cracked, but I don't think it's correct.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
that was definitely a challenge. Yeah, I'd say that's probably the biggest one. And then I guess just in general, starting businesses, it's hard to pick a direction to go in. Because I think as entrepreneurs, in our soul, we want to start every kind of business, right? Like we're just really inspired, excited people with an unstoppable attitude. We believe that I can do anything as long as you put in the work and figure things out. Like that's most entrepreneurs. Like anybody I've ever talked to, I'm like, okay, that's amazing what you're doing and this and that. When are you starting the podcast?
Yeah.
When are you gonna? What's your next big idea? Like almost jokingly, because we all have that drive in us, and I think picking one area of focus is challenging, but that's something you have to overcome at least to get things moving and profitable at that because if you have 5 different businesses and not one of them is making money yet, how are you going to make sales like across the 5? Like you're going to confuse the consumer, confuse yourself. And also you won't have enough energy to put like the right systems in a place for one that works. So I think that's something that took me a little while to catch. And then once I figured that out, I was like, all right, I got to stay focused. No new businesses this year.
I envy the guys that have a single product that go out and just hit it. And it's fantastic. There was a guy on Amazon. He was selling a salt scrub type thing. He had the #1 position in beauty with this product. It was Aztec something. And he had the #1 position in beauty for years and years and years. One product, one size. He was selling thousands of units a day. And it was fantastic. I used to sit there and say to myself, I always come up with these complex businesses. I'm selling razors and skincare and different combinations. And I'm selling beauty and I've got 42 items and we're putting I don't understand why I can't. My brain doesn't. I can never find that single product, I guess.
I'm with you. I'm right there with you. My way of singling it, like narrowing it down, is going marketing, but we both know marketing is very broad, right?
I know, right?
Once I think I've got, okay, these are the only things we're going to offer, then another opportunity comes up. It's like, nah, we do have the capabilities and the creative brains behind making other awesome things too. So, all right, we'll do that too.
Yeah, exactly. Well, I don't want to disappoint this customer, because when we started, my business was called Hound Dog Digital when we first started, we were just focused on, doing Amazon and running ads. And then we had to start building websites, and I didn't have developers. I just had marketers. So I wound up finding a small company that built websites, and we actually merged. And that's when we became Crunch Growth.
Cool.
And then, we started doing other things. Then we started getting into apps and stuff. But yeah, it gets complex pretty quick. You have to think to yourself, I just want to focus. Even today, I think about it. We should just be a social media agency. Let's just focus on social media. But it never works out that way.
No, because then you'll set that up and it's doing great, like your first run, right? And then you're like, then that person you hop on a sales call with will ask for something totally different than even your team has abilities for.
Yeah. Yeah.
Why you got to throw that wrench in on this? But also it's a great idea and I should offer it.
Yeah. Do you guys do SEO? We haven't been able to find a good SEO agency. Actually, yes, we do SEO. Yeah. And all of a sudden we got a whole division,
Yeah. For us, it's like, well, as long as I have somebody who's an expert in that, and you know what I mean? Like, that's key. You got to have the right person in that position to really crush it for you and for the client.
Yeah.
So, but finding those people aren't the easiest either. So
no. Let's take a quick break. I have to run a couple of commercials, and we have a sponsor, and then we'll come back in and we'll finish.
Perfect.
All right, great.
Hi, I'm Julie Jones Hamilton, and my partner, Lynn Kitchen, and I co-host World's Greatest Motivators every Sunday at 4 p.m. Pacific on the Achieve channel. Come join us and the best thought leaders in the planet today, right here at E360 TV.
So you've heard me talk about Dave's Gourmet before. Hot sauce producer over 30 years. They created the super hot category. They're our sponsor tonight, and I've got a little commercial for you. Hey, thanks, Dave, for sponsoring the show. And again, there's a 15% discount. If you use that code, you go to davesgourmet.com and use Think15 for a 15% discount. It's good until the end of the year. So take advantage of it. It's great hot sauce, great pasta sauce. Blaire, welcome back.
About to get some of that hot sauce. That looks great.
Oh, it is fantastic stuff. Some of they have this line of creamy hot sauces, which are really, really good. So use the code. Go to the site, davesgourmet.com, Think15, get 15% discount.
That's awesome.
So okay, we've talked enough about work. We've talked enough about business. We've talked enough about everything that we're doing. What outside of work are you particularly passionate about? What do you do outside of work that you really find mentally and physically is great for you?
Well, I really love, so I'm the fun aunt, and I really love spending time with my niece and nephew and my family as a whole. Like, I love hanging out with my family. We all, most of us live within the same area, so that's pretty nice. I mean, I wish my sister lived closer. She's up in Maryland near you. But I love spending time with my family. That's my favorite thing to do outside of work. But part two of what I like to do outside of work is I also love to travel. I just got back from Germany, so that was exciting.
Yeah.
And it was a work trip, but I did get to sneak in some fun time on the weekend too and extend it.
Yeah.
So those are some of my favorite things.
Yeah, I love traveling, and I've been a little bit wary about it lately just because of what's going on in the world, but I love traveling. And one of the things pre-COVID, for some reason, we wound up with a lot of international clients. We wound up with clients in South Korea and all that. And that's always great to do work trips, right? Like you were on, you go to Germany, or you go because it's your sort of your excuse, and you can, really have some fun traveling around. I'd love to have more international clients, but I'd like to focus on Italy,
nice strategy.
Focus on getting some Italian companies in.
Yeah, exactly. Get a wine brand, something like that would be perfect.
Yeah,
that would be my goal. It's like, I would love to have a wine brand so we can design their label and stuff. We just designed a whiskey label for one of my clients. That was exciting and fun because, I got the bottle in the mail for the first time and I was so excited. I was like, oh my gosh, we were able to create a label for this brand. So
that's fantastic.
But yeah, as far as Italy goes, I think lock in a wine brand if you can.
Wine,
then go over there for some R&D.
Yeah, exactly. Wine, olive oil, anything.
Oh my gosh, yeah, that would be awesome.
Well, we had this arrangement before COVID. We had this arrangement with the South Korean government invests heavily in startups, and if there were any, we bet it was weird how we wound up with this, but we wound up with it nonetheless. And so, anytime that they had a consumer product that had applications on e-commerce or Amazon, we would get the business, and it was great. And when COVID hit, it really hurt us. Not just that, but some other things, because just the way that business happened for like a year and a half. And it was, so we wound up losing that, and we've been trying to get it back, but unfortunately they changed directions because of some regulatory issues that changed and all that stuff. But I actually tried to pitch, because Italy has the same type of thing where they have these startup incubators and then they try and bring them into the United States. So we did pitch them to try and help them with any e-commerce business.
That's smart. And I love that. Any opportunity to travel is super fun, but it's always exciting to get an international client too, because I just started working with somebody in Europe, and they have several offices over there, but a part of why they wanted to work with me is they're like, well, we want to go international. It'd be great if we had, a marketing team in the States. And I was like, yeah, that would be great.
Yeah.
But they're amazing, but it's cool because just to learn about also, different things that across cultures. And we had to establish, are we going to write on your website in American English, or things that like color is spelled with a U,
Yeah,
or I mean for European, and customization is with an S over there, but it's in a Z over here. So like random like things like that. It's just kind of funny to navigate, but that's been fun. But hopefully for more. Maybe I should target places like Italy, like you.
we try and do we tried to get that whole business back. So we've actually targeted almost every country that does that we know that has some sort of an incubation program where the government is involved, because it's it's great business, and you really can learn a lot how to doing it. But you're right, there are subtle nuances to everything. Even Canada, we do business in Canada, and even Canada, the wording is different. And then you've got, Canadian French and Canadian English, and everything has to be dual language. Even when you're working on Amazon, if you sell on Amazon Canada, you got to put things in dual language, and it can be challenging at times.
Yeah. And you don't think about those things initially, right?
You don't
figure it out. Just like everything else. It's fine.
You have no choice but to figure it out. It's either figure it out or die.
Yeah, exactly. But the incubator route, that's so interesting. But it makes sense since that's who you partner with often. And plus, I'm sure that you probably capture a lot of passionate people that are really enthusiastic about expanding their business.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Especially ones, everybody wants to come to the States because, there's 327 million, people here, right? It's when you look at Canada, which is bigger in mileage than the United States, but only has 1/10 of the population. It's like that all over Europe. So everybody wants to get their product to the United States, right? So, and when you can find somebody who knows how to do it and can navigate through and help them, they love it. But so which brings us to another point, because there are things that are challenging every day. There are things that you have to work through. How do you stay motivated?
Honestly, I surround myself with other entrepreneurs and people that are really positive. I think that's a big one, because I think it's challenging to be an entrepreneur. So whenever you hit those speed bumps, and again, like we said at the beginning of this today, we chose this life.
I know,
right? It's a challenge, and so if you are in it by yourself and like you're just working all the time, and then you have these moments that are really, really high highs and really low lows, you got to have somebody to bounce that off of, or at least relate to, even if it's a totally different industry. I think that's something that's helpful. It drives me forward. It's a community of entrepreneurs and friends. It's a rock solid family to lean on. That helps motivate me a lot. And just the fact that I'm also able to help other business owners and other leaders achieve their dreams. That's something for me that's very fulfilling, because what we provide for them is helping them move their businesses forward. And, it's not just aesthetics, right? It's strategy and like, how are you reaching people and driving business, and those elements helping other people out. That's their livelihood.
Yeah.
That's a big driver for me, because I'm not going to settle and do something halfway if like I know how important it is for them, because that element is just as important to me for my business too. So I really understanding that and feeling that kind of attached. I don't know if you call it attachment or whatever, but I just having that understanding and empathy in that level, I think is important.
Yeah. I find it challenging sometimes that we do so much for so many different clients, and we have so many different calls, and sometimes it becomes challenging just to stay motivated, because things are happening, things are out of your control, especially when you do business on Amazon, because we have brands that we're managing their Amazon business, and things go wrong on Amazon. It's never Amazon's fault, and it's always your fault, and you always have to get in there and try and figure it out, because seller central help is not any good. So they don't really help. So you have to really figure it out yourself, and it
waste your time.
It does get challenging, but like you, I surround myself. Well, I have some great people that work with me, but most of the time I take my dogs out, and we have a lot of fun because my dogs just make me laugh all day. So
Oh yeah, you have a GSP, right? The
I have
German
a
Shorthair
GSP,
Pointer.
and I have a German Short Pointer, and I have a Great Pyrenees.
Oh, that's so much fun.
Oh yeah, they're fantastic dogs. They're great.
Mhm.
So um, so we're sort of coming to the end, but let's talk about some, because we like to focus on some funny things. Like I always have funny stories about I can tell you some of them weren't funny when they were happening to me when I was with startups, but eventually you wind up looking back and some of them were funny. You got any funny stories in your that happened along the way? Maybe they
Oh,
weren't funny when they happened, but they're funny now.
let's see. Might dig into the archives a little bit. Back in the purse selling days, 100 years ago,
Yeah.
basically, I was walking home one day, and lived in New York City at this time, and there was a street festival going on in the middle of my street, and I was like, "Whoa! Didn't know this was going on today." And I was like looking at the vendors. I was thinking, "How can I get myself out here?
Yeah.
Why didn't I know about this? What does it take?" And so I went over to a woman who, she's the tiniest little Italian woman you'll ever meet. And she was like the boss for sure. So I went to her and I said, excuse me, ma'am, but how can I be a vendor on this for this event next time? Like, I'd love to learn what it takes. Like, how much does it cost? This and that. And she looks at me literally up and down, like physically. She goes, if you have $80 and you have a table, you can come out right now. And I was like, oh, okay. I literally ran to my apartment. I grabbed every bag that I had on my shoulders, and I took everything off my kitchen table, and I carried that sucker down the street. I plunked it down and I sold some handbags. So I called my mom and I said, what is my life right now? I'm literally walking through a street fair and now I'm a part of it. So that's how my day went.
Yeah.
But it was funny because then later, actually months later, somebody was on the train on the subway and they said, "Hey, are you the purse girl?" And I was like, "Yeah, that's me." I was like, "How do you know that?" They go, "Oh, I saw you at a street fair a few weeks ago." I was like, "Oh my gosh, that's so wild."
That's funny.
So anyway, it's kind of funny. You think New York is a big city. However, it becomes very small town, especially if you live in the Upper West Side for long enough.
Yeah, it's a big city made up of small little neighborhoods.
Mhm.
I grew up in New York, and it was amazing because our life really existed in almost like a 5 square block range. And when you get out of there, it's almost it's a different neighborhood, and it's a different world. But New York it's a unique place. I, I,
Mhm.
I love New York.
It's
There's a lot of things I miss about it, but
I know. Same, same, same.
so
Um,
one last thing, you've got visionaryadvantages.com, but on there you've also got another link to where you have a training course, you have training modules.
yeah, so everything I do is basically on visionaryadvantages.com. Pretty simple. But one another thing, because I'm so passionate about working with entrepreneurs and helping them out, there's so many courses out there, but not many that help the underdog who's just trying to get off the ground, just get started. And so I developed a course called the Business Launch Lab. And what we do in that is 3 phases. Basically, I'll teach you how to get started. How do you become an official business? Um, because a lot of
which is
people,
which is essentially setting up an LLC
yeah,
or
exactly. But so many people have come to me and they just literally freeze in their tracks over that. They're like, I just don't know if I should sign up for an LLC or this B Corp or this or that. And I'm like, whoa, it's not the end of the world. Let's knock it out. You don't have to spend a lot of money on that.
right,
It's very simple to do it yourself. And so I want
right,
people how to do that. So becoming official is the first thing because you're going to treat your business like a business at that point instead of a hobby or dismissing it. Oh, I have this little thing on the side. No, become official. That's very important. And go after it. And then phase 2 is all about attracting your clients. So how do you do that? It's like what we were talking about earlier. You have to have the right messaging and the branding. It's not one or the other, or people aren't just going to show up on your doorstep, right? Or your website for that matter. So how do you set that up on a DIY level? Because this is for people aspiring and new to the entrepreneurship world. And then the third is I help you set up tons of automations and systems that'll help you get rocking and rolling in a short time frame. So that way you will be wearing all the hats as an entrepreneur at the beginning. It's just a fact.
Yeah.
But at least if you can automate and set systems that'll save you time and long-term money, that's really critical. So that's why it's called the Business Launch Lab. It helps you move in the right direction. That way you don't waste your time over downloading this freebie and that freebie and like listening to this conflicting advice from this person you watch on YouTube. Learn from my mistakes, and I have a guide. So there's a link on there too. And I also have a lot of free entrepreneur resources on there as well.
Yeah, that's good. No, you're 100% right. I mean, it's amazing how many people get nervous with the idea of setting up a C Corp or an LLC, or even just understanding what they are and what they do and why they're important.
Yeah.
But you're 100% right. Every state, you can do it yourself for a few $100s.
Yeah.
And there are these companies out there that'll charge you a lot of money to do it for you. Even setting up a trademark, you come up with a great name and getting your trademark done, you could do it yourself.
Mm-hmm.
You don't have to pay an attorney to, a couple $100s to do it. And so, yeah, it's probably a good resource for people.
Yeah. And from my experience, I've set up LLCs in 3 different states over my time of running businesses. And they're always like, I'd say about like less than $200. I mean, it depends on your state, but you shouldn't have to spend a whole lot more than that if you could just do it yourself. So definitely. And also like, don't freeze at looking at those choices. You can always, change things later. So that's not a big deal. But I always think, here's my little Blaire Brown pep talk is what's riskier, staying in the spot that you're in right now and not like listening to that tapping on your heart or your head, like whichever way you're hearing it, right? Is it riskier to not listen to that and to be stuck where you are now? Or is it better to just go try it? And then, worst case scenario, if it doesn't work out, so you pivot and you make a plan B. I think going after it is better. Then you don't have to worry 40 years from now, what if I had tried that? That's where I come from on it.
I agree with that 100%, especially when you're young, because you can always recover. And I would say that my first business was an utter failure. It was just a disaster. Did I lose money? You could argue that I did lose money, but I sold it for more than I put into it, but I didn't get paid for 3 years. So I would say that was a loss. But I have a good friend, Phil. He was on one of the shows, and he and his business partner, Dave, they had developed this app. And that's how I met them, because they were looking for help scaling it. And the app was essentially, it worked off the GPS in your phone. No matter where you are, you could walk outside in Washington, D.C., come out of a meeting, and you say, hey, where can I go get a happy hour beer, or where can I go and get a good hamburger? And it would have, all the local restaurants and bars within, walking distance, and it would show you where they are and what their specials were for the day. Problem with that is where it always breaks down, and it's been tried a million times. It breaks down because of the database. You can't get the bars and restaurants to keep the data flowing correctly. Mm-hmm. So they tried to take an approach in hiring interns to go around and fill the database. It still didn't work, but they could have chalked it up, and they worked their tail off. They were driving Ubers at night to supplement their income because they weren't making anything, but they could have given up. But what they did after 2 years was they pivoted, because they said, over 2 years, we've really learned how to build this app and how to scale this app as best we could. And we've learned about all these pieces with an app. So they turned themselves into an app development agency, and that's what they do. And so, but that's
cool.
It's also what they do is when people, they talk people out of an app sometimes, because sometimes people say, I want an app. And they go, well, maybe you don't need an app. And they sit there and talk and talk them through it and sort of give them coaching and all that. But that's essentially their business today. And they like it because it's turned into a lifestyle business. They travel all the time. They can go wherever they want. They can run their business virtually, and they just love life. So
That's great. I love that the way that turned for them is so cool. That's the exciting thing. It's like if you just get started, just accept it's going to change like a billion times.
it is.
But I mean, embrace it. Like lean into that. But for the fact that they took 2 years of really learning and then they created an agency like that turned out probably better than what they ever had anticipated because they followed their gut for that first idea. I think that's such a positive thing to think about whenever you're starting a business because, like I said at the beginning, if you want to tell got a joke, tell them your plans. You think you're going to have this end all brick and mortar purse store, and that's going to be my end of life like trajectory, right?
Yeah.
But now I have a marketing agency and I can help so many more entrepreneurs out, and sometimes it involves travel and creating whiskey labels, so it's like you just don't know. And we can pivot again down the road. Just I'm embracing the journey. Whatever makes sense for the business and for the clients, go for it.
Exactly. All right. Well, we're out of time. I hate to cut it off. We could talk all day, but
Yes.
and it feels like we have. But yeah. So thanks for being here. Really enjoyed it. And I have to do a couple of closing things. So I'm going to pop you out and,
Sure. Thank you so much for having me. This has been amazing.
It's our pleasure. It's my pleasure to have you. I think it was a great conversation. And
yeah, it was fun.
Yeah, thanks again.
Thank you. And this is the end, right? All right. Thank you so much.
All right. So there you have it, Blaire. I think the positivity is infectious sometimes, right? She definitely is passionate about what she does and passionate about entrepreneurship. And so, just a great person all around, very positive, always looking at the bright side of things, right? Which is difficult to do sometimes, but hey. So, hey, thanks for joining, and we'll see you next week. We've got some great guests. We always try and keep it full of great guests. And again, if you go to philmasiello.com, you can download a business planning guide for startups. It's free. Great information in there. I think you'll love it. People who are using it swear by it. Again, I've taken all that knowledge that I've had over all those years and created this business planning guide. So take advantage of it. It's free. Take advantage of the Dave's deal. And we'll see you next week. And have a great night.